Nice. So good evening to everyone that's joined. Good evening to those on Instagram watching from your devices. This evening we're talking diet myths or some common diet myths that need to be broken down and hopefully be on the way out very, very soon. Okay. I'll share my screen just for a few moments. Okay. Hopefully we can all see this. All right. We're going to start off talking about the notion of natural sugars and why this is used as a marketing gimmick sometimes, and to help you build a little bit of a better understanding around sugars in food, okay, and how products can try and get you through marketing with that, okay? We'll move on to the topic of coconuts and how it is, I'll say, controversial in that it's regarded as a superfood. It's by no means a bad thing. It's not bad for you, but it's overhyped. And there are other foods out there that are arguably slightly better for you, okay? We'll move into nighttime eating and why some people may be scared of eating at night, and the whole notion of no carbs or no food after a certain time, and why we don't need to be afraid of eating after a certain time, depending on a few other things. We'll then move into guilty pleasures and the topic of willpower, okay? And why, similar to the first topic I spoke about, why the whole notion of guilt-free marketing on foods is BS, and why we shouldn't feel guilty about anything that we eat, and why the whole notion of willpower shouldn't really be paid as much attention to. And then finally, the topic of some people may believe that dietary fats in the diet make them fat. Okay, I'm going to go into why that's not the case and why we don't need to be fearful about eating fats. Okay, so I'll stop sharing my screen there. Okay, and I remind you, please speak up at any time if you've got a question, or pop it in the chat and I'm happy to answer it through there. Okay, cool. And I thank you all again for joining this evening. We'll start off on the topic of natural sugars. Okay, I don't know if you've seen it before on products. It may claim that it contains or that it is a natural sugar, okay, or an unrefined sugar. That's a similar way of saying the same thing. These things may include coconut sugar, raw sugar, brown rice malt syrup, agave syrup, anything ending in sugar or anything ending in syrup. Usually, not all the time, usually means it's some form of sugar, okay? Now, either that product itself or other foods that you see made with these sugars may claim to be made with natural sugars, and it can create what's called a health halo effect, okay? So it may attract buy-in through creating this image that it's healthier because it's using less refined sugars, okay? Now, this is, without sounding too brutal, marketing BS. Our bodies recognize the different types of sugar in their chemical forms. Our body can't distinguish between whether it's sugar from a sugar cane, sugar from rice malt, sugar from molasses, whatever it may be, whatever the source may be. Our body goes, hey, sugar. Okay, there's different kinds of sugars and different lengths of sugar chains. I'm not going to go into that science and bore you. But our body sees sugar, and it will break the different types of sugars down. It may send some to our liver to be converted, and then these sugars end up as glucose. Okay, our body sees glucose, and it absorbs that into our bloodstream after all of the cool things that it does to the sugar that you've eaten, and then it does what it wants with that. Okay. Again, I'll remind you that sugar is not a bad thing. We don't want to fear sugar. We don't want to try and eliminate all of it from our diet. But I just want to give you a slightly better understanding in that marketers who claim that something uses unrefined or natural sugars are usually trying to attract buy-in, okay? So not all the time, but more often than not, a product without added sugar is probably, or that uses something like stevia, for example, a natural sweetener other than sugar, is probably going to be better for you. I'm saying this very loosely and generally, than a product that claims it uses natural sugar, okay? Just because it's still adding sugar into that product, okay? Now, some of you may be thinking, what about honey? Okay. Honey comes from bees. Okay. Some types of honey, such as Manuka honey, can offer us benefits, including antibacterial benefits. Okay. So it does offer us some benefits, more, I know I'm using the same term here, more unrefined or whole versions of honey may offer us some benefits, but at the end of the day, it's still sugar. Okay. So adding plenty of, let's say, honey to our foods will still add a lot of sugar, and that may contribute to an excess energy intake because of the nice sweet taste and the fact that it may be easier to eat. Okay. So long story short there, sugar, even though it comes in many different types of forms, is still sugar, and adding lots of it to our food or drink, whatever it may be, probably isn't going to be great for us in the long run. Okay. Anybody got any questions there before I move on to the next topic? Remember, you can speak through the microphone, or you're welcome to pop it into the chat.
Hi, Alex. Is there a certain amount of sugar that you can have in one day? Is there like a limit?
That'll be highly dependent on the person. So I don't want to say any numerical figure because everyone's got differing requirements in terms of overall carbohydrate requirements. In saying that, I'll answer it in this way. I want you to prioritize getting most of your carbohydrates from whole grains. So whole grain products like breads, brown rice, wholemeal pasta, oats, that sort of whole grains, from fruits, okay, and from vegetables, including things like potatoes and sweet potatoes, okay? As long as you're getting most of your intake from fruit, vegetables, and whole grains of carbohydrates from those, then a little bit of added sugar, let's say 1 teaspoon of sugar in your coffee a few days a week, or one or two treats a week, such as a couple of lollies or a small chocolate bar, that's all right. If we're having a few sources of added sugar here and there, that doesn't matter. It's not to be feared. But most of your carbohydrates should be coming from fruit, vegetables, and whole grains. Does it make sense?
Okay. Yeah, so a little bit of honey on oats in the morning is okay?
A little bit of honey on oats is fine. Absolutely. As long as we're not gouging heaps and heaps and heaps all over it. A little, like a tablespoon of honey on your oats is fine. I don't want you to fear that if you enjoy that.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay? No worries. All good. We'll move on to now coconut. All right. It's regarded or marketed as a superfood. Okay. Coconut is one of those things that, again, isn't bad. It's not bad for you. We shouldn't avoid it. We shouldn't cut it out of our diets, but it's overhyped and it's talked up a lot when it's probably not as beneficial for us as marketers would like us to think. Okay. I'll use the first example of coconut oil. Okay. Whether we use it in frying, sauteing with our dinners, whether we add it into baking or slices or cookies, whatever that may be, or use it as a salad dressing maybe. Coconut oil, or coconut in general, I should say, is high in saturated fat. Okay, now you may have joined in a fat webinar that presented a bit earlier on into these series, but saturated fat, or too much of it every day, for a prolonged period of time, can raise levels of our bad cholesterol or LDL cholesterol in our blood. Okay, too much of that can lead to the risk of cardiovascular disease over time. Okay, so in saying that, instead of using, I shouldn't say you shouldn't use coconut oil. However, a more heart healthy oil would be something like olive oil. Okay, olive oil offers us many monounsaturated fats. Those are better for our hearts and for our overall cardiovascular system in the long run. Okay. Olive oil, or extra virgin olive oil, I should say, the less refined version of olive oil, also offers us antioxidants and phytochemicals, which can have other benefits for our health around our body. Okay. So long story short there, coconut isn't bad. It shouldn't be feared. I'm not saying if you like coconut oil, I'm not saying to never use it again. But if you use it thinking that it's more beneficial for you than other oils, I would say make a swap to olive oil or other plant-based oils such as sunflower oil or avocado oil. Those are just two other examples. Olive oil is probably the highest recommended one. They're likely to offer you more benefits, especially for your heart. Okay. Another thing I'll mention with coconut here is the topic of yogurt and ice cream. Coconut yogurt, for example, Koyo or coconut ice cream, is starting to become more and more popular with different brands coming out. Again, marketed sometimes as a healthier alternative to traditional, let's say, Greek yogurt or traditional ice cream. Okay. This more often than not is not the case. A good quality high protein Greek yogurt, such as Chobani, I'll use that as an example. It's one of the highest protein ones out there. Contains, like I just said, high amounts of good quality protein, a high amount of calcium, as well as probiotics for our guts. Okay, so as well as many other benefits in there as well. Okay, coconut yogurt, depending on the brand and the specific type, is often quite low in protein. It's often quite low in calcium. And many brands, not all of them, many brands don't add these beneficial probiotics to them. Okay. So again, I'm not saying to avoid coconut yogurt. I'm just saying that there are better options out there for us. And if we consume dairy in our diets, assuming that we can, regular dairy yogurt, assuming that it's a good quality, high protein one without plenty of added sugar, is going to offer us a lot more benefits than coconut yogurt usually would. Okay. If you choose not to consume dairy if you follow a plant-based diet, I recommend a good quality soy yogurt. Okay. There's a few brands of soy yogurt out there that still offer you the protein, but some brands put calcium in there. So you're still getting some of the benefits of traditional yogurt. Okay. So in summary, coconut isn't bad. I'm not saying to cut it out of your diet. I'm just saying that it's not the superfood that it's often touted to be, if that makes sense. Okay. Anybody got any questions there? Whether you like to yell them out or pop them in the chat before I move on. About what I just covered with coconut. Feel free to pop them in the chat if you don't want to yell them out. Okay. Nope. Cool. I'll move on. Next topic, nighttime eating. Okay. Now, I'm sure many of you, correct me if I'm wrong, may have heard negative connotations surrounding eating at night and why eating late at night is bad for you and why eating late at night may turn into fat more or why carbs after 6 p.m. are bad for you. Okay. This is often blown out of the water and misinterpreted. Okay. The first thing I'll say, I'm sorry for you, those of you who tune in most weeks, you're probably sick of hearing me say this by now. Your body weight is primarily determined by the total amount of energy from carbohydrates, proteins, and fats that you eat from the moment that you get up, from the moment you go to bed. So the total energy intake across the day, week to week, month to month, is what's going to determine your weight gain or weight loss, or your weight, I should just say. Okay. So whether you eat most of your energy later in the day or whether you eat most of your energy earlier in the day is going to be pure, or how you space out your meals and snacks are going to be determined by your lifestyle preferences. Okay. What fits well into your lifestyle, what meets your goals. Okay. I don't want you to fear if earlier in the day you're not that hungry and then you start to get hungrier slightly later. Okay. That's not me saying that to restrict your food intake all day and then to go crazy at night. That may end badly. Okay. We don't want to do that. What I'm trying to say is that it doesn't matter if your last meal of the day is a little bit later because of work commitments, because of family commitments, because of other commitments or enjoyments in your life. Okay. The whole notion of carbs after 6 p.m. is BS. Okay. Again, similar to what I was saying at the start, when you eat carbs, your body sees carbs. It breaks it down to glucose. Whether you eat most of them at 6 p.m. or 8 or 9 p.m., if you're within your total daily energy budget, your total daily energy requirements, in the long run, you're not going to gain fat. Okay. As long as you're within those energy targets on a day-to-day basis. Okay. So I don't want you to be fearful of eating at night. Okay. In saying that, that's not an excuse to go and slam a packet of Tim Tams or to order Uber Eats McDonald's every night at 11 p.m. I'm not encouraging you to do that, okay? Because that may end badly. I'm just saying that we don't have to be fearful if we're eating our regular dinner a little bit late, okay? That's not a bad thing, okay? If we eat a lot of food late, in the long run, that's shown to have some potential negative effects on our health markers, like our blood glucose, our blood cholesterol, our blood lipids, or blood fats, I should say. So if you can, try and get most of your food before about 2 hours of going to bed, or even more if you can, okay? Just so we can help our health markers stay in place, as well as so we don't interrupt our sleep quality. Going to bed on a full stomach probably isn't the best for our sleep quality, okay? But in the grand scheme of things, I don't want you to be fearful if you sometimes have a meal or some of your daily intake late at night, okay? It's not going to flick a light switch and cause you to gain body fat, okay? Any questions there about nighttime eating before I move on? Again, yell them out loud or pop them in the chat. Up to you. Nope, no questions. Cool. We will move on to guilty pleasures and willpower now, okay? Now, I have spoken a little bit about this or touched on it in previous webinars, but I haven't really gone into detail as per se. Similar to what I was saying at the start with the whole natural sugars marketing, some marketers or some food products, I should say, may tout guilt-free or guilt-free pleasure or whatever it may be, okay? Guilt-free ice cream or guilt-free cookies or whatever it may be, okay? I really get grinded gears by this simply because we shouldn't be feeling guilty about eating anything, okay? Food associated guilt is unhealthy in itself, okay? So for example, you have a couple of cookies, okay? And you feel guilty. Let's just use that as a scenario. That guilt that you feel associated with eating cookies is technically less healthy than what the cookies are in the first place, if you know what I mean, okay? So some people may say, hey, those cookies are unhealthy. That attitude or feeling guilty around eating the foods is what's unhealthy, okay? That's the problem here, all right? We don't want to be feeling guilty, or we shouldn't be feeling guilty about eating anything, okay? I just want to make that clear from the start, right? If we associate food, so let's use a common example of chocolate, okay? Let's say someone says, chocolate's my guilty pleasure, and I give in to my willpower a few times a week and have chocolate, okay? That attitude surrounding chocolate may, I'm not saying will, may cause people to restrict the chocolate and to try and be good and keep it out of their sight and to not touch it and to try and restrict it for a few days in a row, okay? But without them knowing, they may build up an urge to want to eat chocolate, really want chocolate, okay? And then when someone finally gives in to that, they may go overboard and eat rows and rows, if not a whole block of chocolate, okay, before they realize, all right? That may then lead on to the next stage of the cycle of, again, feeling guilty and going, oh my God, I just ate so much chocolate. I feel so bad. I shouldn't have done that. Leading on again to the next stage of restricting again, okay? And then we enter this big, annoying old merry-go-round where we restrict, we binge, feel guilty, restrict, and it just goes round and round and round in circles, okay? What if I said to you that if we didn't feel guilty in the first place, if we had 1 or 2 little squares of chocolate a few nights a week and actually let ourselves enjoy something we love, that you may be less likely to go on and consume too much, okay? And again, this is very contextually dependent. This isn't going to be the same for every person. There are other things to consider here, but on a baseline for the general population, if we occasionally let ourselves have treats that we enjoy in moderated quantities, we may be less likely to overindulge down the track, okay? And as well, in saying that, if we remind ourselves that there's nothing to feel guilty about here, I shouldn't be feeling guilty with my eating, that's another thing which can help with our attitudes towards eating things that are a treat, okay? I'm not saying to go out and slam junk food every single day. That's not good for us. We don't want to be eating junk food every single day. I'm just saying that when we do, every now and again, on an occasional basis, treat ourselves, we need to remind ourselves that it's okay. There's nothing to feel guilty about. We don't have to hold our willpower up for brownie points, pardon the pun, but we just need to feel comfortable in the fact that it's a treat. We've enjoyed it. It's okay. Move on. And then focus on predominantly eating healthy foods in line with our goals 9 times out of 10. Okay? Does that make sense, what I was speaking about? Has anybody got any questions on that? Feel free to pop them in the chat. No? Cool. So if you're going to take anything away from that, the whole guilt-free marketing or guilt-free labels on foods is BS. I really, I get more annoyed at it than I probably should, but we don't want to be paying attention to that, because whether you eat guilt-free cookies or whether you have a regular cookie without the guilt-free label, we should feel okay with eating it and enjoying it and then moving on, and then predominantly focusing on things or foods which are in line with our goals and our health. Okay? Last thing I'll cover before we wrap it up is the whole notion of fat making us fat. Okay? Similar to what I said a little while ago, our body weight, including fat gain, is primarily determined by our total energy intake, okay? Across the day, across the week, across months, and even years, okay? Whether this energy comes from protein, carbs, or fats, none of those things are going to directly cause us to gain fat, okay? Eating too much total energy for our requirements over a long period of time will be the thing that causes us to gain fat, okay? So fat in itself, in this example, is just one of those macronutrients, okay? Macronutrients meaning nutrients that provide our bodies with energy, okay? So fat in itself isn't going to directly cause us to gain fat, okay? It's impossible for it to directly cause us, all right? It will only cause us to gain fat if we're eating too much fat or too much total energy for our total daily requirements. Okay. In saying that, where things can often get misinterpreted, fat is the most energy dense macronutrient, meaning per gram. Okay. It contains more energy than carbs and proteins. Okay. So if you have this much fat here, and if you have this much carbohydrate here, the fat or this circle here will be more filled with energy than what the same sized circle would be of carbohydrate, okay? There's more energy in the same weight of fat, okay? Which means that we potentially have to be a little more conscious of how much we're eating and moderate our portions a little bit more, okay? Just so we don't risk over consuming energy in total. In saying that though, fat won't directly or inherently make us fat, okay? Fat's important for many things in our bodies, okay? A few weeks ago, I spoke about how it's important for our cell membranes, helping control what goes in and out of our cells. It's important for keeping us insulated. It's important for carrying certain vitamins around our body and amongst other things, okay? And as well as making certain hormones in our bodies. None of what I just said can occur without ample amounts of dietary fat, okay? So long story short there, we don't have to cut fat out of our diet. We don't have to be fearful of fat. We just have to pay a little bit closer attention to how much we're eating, because it is more dense in total energy, okay? And it's total energy compared to our requirements that will determine whether we gain, lose, or maintain our weight. Okay? Any questions there on fats? I'm sorry if I just rambled. Welcome to speak up, pop it in the chat. Either or, doesn't matter. Nope. That's right. Cool. I'll quickly sum up because you're probably sick of hearing me ramble by now, but I'll sum up the things that I've gone over this evening, okay? Natural sugars, or companies saying that products saying that it contains natural sugars or unrefined sugars, is usually a marketing gimmick, okay? They're trying to create a health halo effect and get people to buy in, okay? We should be trying to buy more, not all products, but more products that don't add sugar to them, okay? Or that use things like stevia in place of sugar to add to their products to sweeten them, okay? In most of our carbohydrates should be coming from fruit, vegetables, whole grains, okay? But every now and again, little bits of added sugar in our food, such as a tablespoon of honey every day or every second day or so on our oats, is not going to harm us. We don't have to fear that, okay? Coconut is often overhyped and marketed as a superfood when the oils in coconut are predominantly saturated fat, okay? So the fats which aren't as good for our hearts over time, we should be prioritizing getting our oils or fats from unsaturated sources, okay? Like olive oil, like salmon, like avocado, like nuts and seeds, okay? Nighttime eating, again, I'm not encouraging you to go and eat plenty and plenty and plenty in front of the TV at night. I'm just saying that if we have dinner when it's dark, let's just say, it's not going to directly cause you to gain weight. If you have carbs at 7:30 p.m., your body's not going to go, oh my God, it's 7:30 p.m. and store them as fat, okay? It's our total daily and weekly and monthly energy intake compared to our energy requirements that will determine our body weight, okay? We shouldn't feel guilty about anything that we eat, okay? So guilt-free marketing or products that say guilt-free, you should get at least a little bit annoyed at them if you've learned anything this evening. We shouldn't feel guilty about anything that we eat, okay? No food is bad. It's not going to, no food is bad. No food should be demonized, okay? We want to try and develop a healthy relationship with food, and we want to treat ourselves. We also want to treat ourselves moderate quantities every now and again without feeling guilty, and then move on to eating foods in line with our goals, okay? Finally, dietary fat won't directly make you fat, okay? It just contains a little bit more energy per gram than carbohydrates and proteins, okay? And we want to pay a little bit more attention, be a little bit more moderate in our serve sizes, okay? Cool. That's it from me this evening, okay? If there's no questions, I will pop my Instagram account in the chat. If you have any questions whatsoever that you didn't think of on the spot that you want to ask me during the week, you are more than welcome to, okay? Thanks to everyone that joined this evening. I hope that you've been reassured or that you've learnt a few things, okay? Have a wonderful week and take care of yourselves, okay? Train hard. Bye for now.
Thanks, Alex.